field. It's a constantly changing way of thinking, of coming up with reasonable approximations to the truth and then discarding them when they don't work and coming up with something else. And evolution, regardless of what Dr. Hovind says, is very much a part of that tradition. We are constantly revising, we are constantly updating, we are constantly tossing out bad and putting in better. We haven't absolutely proved it yet. We haven't absolutely proved anything. You will never prove anything absolutely anywhere in science. It was shown by the logician Karl Popper in the 1930s. You cannot get absolute proof. What you can get is, all right, you're putting up the stop sign, so let me see if I can finish this in an orderly fashion. What you can get are better approximations to the truth that is in fact out there. Evolution is very much a part of this growing process. Evolution is as sound a science as anything you are going to find. And while I don't demand that my students accept it, and I don't demand that they surrender their faith, my goal as a teacher is to give them a sense of this dynamic nature of how it changes and how it grows and how it improves. Thank you very much.
There we go. Well, I'm glad to hear that you admit science is constantly changing and improving and progressing. When you get all done climbing the mountain of truth, you will find the Baptists were sitting there all along. And you mentioned about improving the accuracy of the drawings. Let me make sure I understand what you're saying. These are the drawings that Haeckel used to support the embryology idea, okay? He flat lied, and it's not an improving of the drawings we need to get, folks. On top are Haeckel's drawings, underneath are actual photographs. Now, if you try, it appeared to me like you tried to imply in your last statement that this might still be evidence for evolution because now we have more accurate drawings. I hope you're not implying that, because everybody that studies this will tell you it's been disproven a long time ago. The biogenetic law, as Haeckel called it, cannot be weeded out in spite of its having been demonstrated to be wrong by subsequent scholars. The biogenetic law is as dead as a doornail, okay? There is no evidence for this. Haeckel was convicted of fraud and confessed he was a liar. Go ahead.
That's why I don't teach the biogenetic law the way Haeckel proposed it.
It just sounded to me like...
I don't know anybody who does teach that ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny.
Okay, you bring
that doesn't mean that this isn't evidence.
Okay, but there you go again. It doesn't mean it isn't evidence. How can you say that? It's a dead law. No, but here you are still clinging to it, claiming it is still evident. Is anybody else getting that? Is that what he's implying?
All right. Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny was Haeckel's particular spin, in which he argued that an organism literally goes through its ancestral stages on the way to becoming an adult. That
Correct.
At one time you were, in some important sense, a fish, you had gills, etc. Well, they're not gills. I don't teach that they're gills. The textbooks that I use call them pharyngeal slits rather than gills.
I agree. Do you still teach that this is evidence for evolution, though?
What, the ontogeny recapitulating phylogeny?
Do you still teach that the embryo goes through stages of evolution?
I don't know anybody who does right now, and I certainly don't.
Bring me the textbook used in your college. I'll show it to you.
I actually teach mostly from PowerPoint presentations on the web.
Okay.
I'm not very good at following textbooks.
But I guarantee it is still in the books, and that's what the folks are upset about. Get that out of the books. It's a lie. Take it out of the books. They don't want to pay to cut down more perfectly good trees to print perfectly bad lies.
Right. Right. If memory serves, the textbook we used didn't include the biogenetic law. What it did point out was that...
I collect the textbooks. I have hundreds of them. I assure you, it's in there.
In Monroe Strickberger?
I don't know if I have that particular one. I have probably a couple of dozen. My point is, it's still in there. Here's an Irish textbook telling the embryo's gill slits. Here's Holt Biology showing gill slits. That's simply a lie. Here's Glencoe Biology showing gill slits, a 4th week embryo. Here's Tim Barra still teaching 115 years after it was proven wrong. Here's Kenneth Miller, 1998. I debated Ken Miller on the radio a couple of months ago. I said, Ken, why are you still teaching that? You write a lot of textbooks. He said, well, we're taking it out of the next edition. Here's a 2000 edition textbook, still has the gill slits. Here's a 2001 textbook, still teaching the kids. They look similar. These similarities provide evidence that these animals evolved from a common ancestor. Now, that's just a bald-faced lie. First place, they're not similar. Any similarities that there may be construed could be just as much evidence of a common designer. Why are we all paying to teach the kids this is evidence of a common ancestor in the 2001, proven wrong in 1874? And I still don't think you get it from what I'm hearing you say. You still somehow think this is evidence for evolution. Do you think the similarities of the embryos are evidence of a common ancestor? Yes or no?
Sure.
Okay, then you're lying to your kids. They are not evidence of a common ancestor. All right.
Then what are the pharyngeal clefts doing there?
That's part of the development process. It's like, why are there rivets on the frame of a car? You got to have it to hold it together, you know. The fact that we may not understand everything doesn't prove it's proof of a common ancestor. You're still not getting the point. All this might be proof of a common designer. Why wouldn't you be willing to admit that? Kids, it could be a common designer. But the textbooks don't teach that. And everybody that I know that's got a brain in their head resents that.
It certainly could be evidence of a common designer.
Well, tell the kids that.
One question. In my current class, I think many of the students are from a Christian background, but I have at least one practicing Muslim in there. Should I tell him privately that it was Allah and everyone else that it was the God of traditional Christian belief?
Oh, Allah is certainly not the God of traditional Christian belief. They're very different gods, okay? All right.
In Turkey, there's actually a rather large creation science movement that's been gathering steam over the past few years, led by this book by a man named Harun Yahya. Every so often they send me junk email, which is kind of a pain because it's in Turkish, which my conversational Turkish is a little bit rusty, you see. But they use essentially the same arguments that I've seen you present, that I've seen others present, in some cases almost the same diagrams, with the exception that where you would write the God of the Bible, they write Allah. How do we decide the difference between those in a scientific manner?
Well, I think we're getting way off topic on that. I think when you read the Quran and it tells you clearly you're supposed to execute anybody who won't convert to Islam, right away you ought to red flags ought to go up and say, we got a dangerous bunch of folks out there, okay? Okay. Now, to get back on topic, let me finish my closing comments, and then we'll I got to speak again tonight, but otherwise I'll stay as late as possible. This textbook shows the kids Grand Canyon, and it says, over millions of years, the Colorado River carved out the Grand Canyon from solid rock. That's just simply a lie, okay? It's a fact the Grand Canyon exists, but it's not a fact of how it happened, okay? There are two interpretations of that. I'm going to cover that tonight. This textbook again says the Colorado River has cut through layer upon layer of rock over millions of years. Well, now hold on a second. If you built a dam across the Grand Canyon, that would take a lot of dirt, by the way, but if you did, a giant lake would back up behind you, covering several states. A massive lake would form. There's a huge drainage area. These two red lines indicate what's called the snow line, and this is about a 270-mile view from a satellite. Grand Canyon, the Colorado River enters over here and flows downhill through the canyon and comes out back at ground level, even though it's still going downhill, because the ground loops up and goes back down. It's called the Kaibab uplift, a massive several hundred-mile